I've seen this guy. I've seen some of his videos, but I've never reacted to any of his videos. This is my first reaction to Tierzoo. I'm familiar with Tierzoo. He talks about, tiers. Tierzoo. He talks about animals. He puts them in tiers and ranks them on their powers and abilities and stuff. It's a very fun way of looking at animals. It's almost like you're looking at characters in a video game. Like you're playing some open world game and you're picking a race, picking a tribe, picking a species. He does it in a very fun way. Him and Casual Geographic are really are the kings of the. I like real science. I like their stuff. Their stuff is very educational, but Tierzoo and Casual Geographic bring those two guys bring a playfulness, an aspect of fun to the way they talk about animals and stuff. I like animals. I like how they do their videos. Check out Tierzoo. It's fucking amazing. Let's check out the video. This one I think is a recent one. Centipedes OP. This is it's actually nice that that this just came out, because I've seen some of his videos. I don't know which ones I've seen and which ones I haven't, but I've seen some. But this one is recent, and it's an interesting animal. Centipedes, man. Centipedes are like tanks. They're such a. I think they're OP. They're OP. Pound for pound, considering size, they're OP. It's scary how strong they are, man. Considering the size, man. They're like, I think they're kind of like Wolverines, You know how Wolverines are tiny, but they're really strong. Like they're really strong. Like they bring down deer-sized animals, Wolverines, and they're the size of like skunks and stuff. They're like raccoon size, and they bring down deer-sized animals. I think they fuck up most. It's crazy. I think centipedes have that thing going on where they're tiny, but they're just super strong. It doesn't make sense. Their strength makes no sense. It's like a praying mantis. You see a praying mantis eating a bird or a lizard or a mouse, and you're like, how the fuck do you even have the strength to hold on to that mouse? You're like built like a stick. You're like a twig, and you're clamping down on a mouse. Yeah, I love freaky strong animals like that, man. I think centipedes are in that category. Animals that punch way above their weight. I think that's the tier. That's the tier title for me. Animals that punch way above their weight, either by freaky strength, unmatched aggression. Freaky strength, stuff like Wolverines, but they also have freaky aggression. Honey badgers, freaky aggression. Yeah, and then mantis, centipedes. I think centipedes, I don't know if they have venom, man. But let's continue. Oh, man. Let's just get into the video, man. Let's see.
Centipedes are without a doubt one of the most terrifying builds in the entire game.
Yeah.
They're also one of the oldest. They're part of an ancient lineage called myriapods, which were the first builds to ever unlock the ability to breathe air, way back during the Silurian expansion. Their many legs and venomous fangs make for a fearsome display for any player looking to challenge them in combat. But has their ancient strategy held up in the face of the immense power creep the game has seen? Is having dozens upon dozens of legs much of an improvement over just having a few? Let's take a closer look at the stats and abilities of Centipedes.
Yeah. They mostly resemble their cousins. I don't know if they're distant cousins or if they're both myriapods, yeah? Millipedes. I think millipedes got screwed, man. Look at the build of the centipede and then look at the millipede, man. The millipede is like the millipede is like I bet millipedes hate centipedes so much, man. Like the beef must be so fucking so deep. Their beef must be so deep because they look so similar, and I'm sure centipedes talk crazy shit to millipedes. I'm sure they let them have it every fucking time. And I'm sure millipedes hate that they have kind of the same thing going on, but super useless. Look at their body. It's like it look like it's just a cylinder. It looks strong, but look at the millipede, man. That thing, even just the way the different segments are shaped, man, like a fucking tank. And then look at the legs, and then look at the millipede's legs. Millipedes are just like, I know the beef must be something else, man. Like just deep ancestral beef, man. You know, like a derby. You know how your rivalries tend to be strongest when teams are from the same town. These guys are too similar to have like casual beef. This is like on site, I will fuck you up. And it's always the millipedes and the centipedes winning. You know, like it would suck going to school as a kid as a millipede and then just having to sit next to centipedes. Because you look similar maybe at a certain age. And then you guys hit puberty and they just become freaky athletes. And you guys are just you know. It's like jokes and nerds, man. This has to be a crazy beef.
Improvement over just having a few? Let's take a closer look at the stats and abilities of centipedes and millipedes, and ultimately decide where they fall on the tier list. First, let's take a look at their stats and abilities. And for this section, we'll show both the centipede and millipede base stats. Both centipedes and millipedes have solid defensive stats. They're both part of the arthropod faction and inherit the exoskeletal armor perk, granting them dramatically higher base defense compared to similarly sized soft-bodied invertebrates, such as slugs or velvet worms. Their chitinous exoskeleton can deflect most basic attacks from players at or below their weight class. There is a meaningful difference between the two on this front, though. Millipedes have interlocking articulated plates, leaving essentially zero gaps in their armor other than on the underside where all their leg joints are. Centipedes, on the other hand, do have gaps in their armor, particularly in between segments on their sides between their legs. Unlike millipedes, which have their leg joints attached on their underside, centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede, making these weak points much more difficult to defend. This results in the side which have their leg joints attached on their underside. Centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede, making these weak points much more difficult.
Okay, so the millipede legs are here, the centipede legs are here. So millipedes basically have to do like this to walk. Centipedes are like this. Okay.
To defend. Centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede, making these weak points much more difficult to defend. This
look at that. Look
located
at that
on the
image.
side of the centipede, making these weak points.
Look at this image. Yeah, nothing beats teamwork. Nothing beats teamwork. This is so symbolic of society. Like you've seen this particular photo many times, different versions of it. Whether it's a dead elephant and there's like a bunch of hunters standing around showing teamwork is what gets it done. When you have like a giant monster, teamwork. And ants are the kings of teamwork, man. I just love how every leg is being held. And they look like they mean it too. They look like they know what they're doing. You know? Like they look like they have a plan. Like they sat down before the mission and they came up with a plan. Or they have a plan, an automatic plan for guys like this. Ants are something else. I think they're so cool, man. Ants are really cool. They're really cool, man. They'll fuck you up though.
On their underside, Centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede, making these weak points much more difficult to defend. This results in a much higher defense stat for millipedes, but the trade-off is pretty obvious when you look at their other major difference, their mobility stat. Millipedes have a speed stat that is only slightly higher than that of a snail, which is incredibly low given that snails don't even have legs. Centipedes, with their less restrictive armor, are some of the quickest moving arthropods in the game, able to quickly weave in and around cover and scale walls in record time. Their quick, twitchy movement makes them tough to pin down, and because of their flat shape, they have a very easy...
I don't know what's scarier. Centipedes or scorpions? I think centipedes are scarier to me. Like those big ones. Those big scary ones, like the one we're seeing here. Even just the build itself. Both are scary looking. You know? They're built to intimidate. They have that going, you know. It's like a crazy medieval soldier with crazy scary armor on. So not only are they OP, you see them and it's like, what the fuck am I looking at? You know, scorpions are kind of like that. With that stinger. And the fucking... What are they? Are they mandibles? The things that they use to clamp. I think centipedes are scarier looking to me. But both would terrify me if they just made it into my house. I feel like if I was just chilling and I saw a centipede in my house and it ran off and I didn't know where it went, and I just know there's a centipede in my house and I don't know where the fuck it is, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to sleep until I addressed it, you know. What would I do? I'd probably go and get like bug spray. It would have to be bug spray. You know, it would have to be bug spray. I wonder if it works on scorpions too.
They're quick, twitchy, able to quickly weave in and around cover and scale walls in record time. Their quick, twitchy movement makes them tough to pin down, and because of their flat shape, they have a very easy time running for cover if threatened by a player in a higher weight class. But of course, the primary reason they're invested in a higher movement speed is because it synergizes well with the last major difference they have for millipedes, their power stat. Millipedes have no offensive moves at all. When confronted with an adversary, millipedes will respond by attempting to lock down their defenses even more tightly than they already are, in hopes that the aggressive player will simply give up. They'll curl up into a ball in order to guard their already small number of weak points, and may also begin secreting noxious and/or toxic chemicals to dissuade persistent predators from risking poison damage. Centipedes may attempt to curl and tank some...
What the fuck is this? Dude. The thing is like... That's like a snake, man. It's like you're holding a snake, like a tiny rattlesnake or something. Like, look at the size of that thing compared to her hand, man. Or to that person's hand. I don't know why I'm saying her hand. To that person's hand. That's crazy. That's not even something you can step on. You know, that's where these things start to get super crazy. When you realize, usually I'm able to step on bugs and stuff. I can't step on this one. I feel like this thing will just hold my leg and just push me off, tackle me, and just fuck me up, start punching me. It's too big. You're not stepping on this. Forget even about like stepping on it. Say you go get a weapon, what do you even get? Bug spray is not working on this. It will literally grab the bug spray from you and spray you. You're not spraying this. What do you even do? You need a gun, a shotgun for this. This needs a gun. Or just get over here because you don't have guns like that, you know. I'd go get like a brave neighbor, because there's always a crazy fucking guy around. There's always... I don't care where you are. I don't care if there's a fucking lion in your house. There's always that crazy fucking guy in the neighborhood that just wants to show that they are the guy for this. Just go get them. They'll bring their machete if it's over here, a panga, a machete, and see what they can do. It's what people do when there's a snake around. Someone spots a snake or something. People just this would I'm saying in your house. I'm not talking like outside. People would hit it with stones and kill it. People would stone it from a distance over here. That thing is huge. That thing is huge, man. Over here, when people find something like this and they don't know what it is, usually people get superstitious. They start saying it's demons and stuff. This would definitely qualify that category for people here. Because I've seen centipedes never one this big. This is a fallout creature, man.
Persistent predators from risking poison damage. Centipedes may attempt to curl and take some hits, but more often than not, they'll opt to either flee or rely on their powerful offense to substitute for their lackluster defense. The centipede's jaws, which are really their two front legs, have been modified into hypodermic daggers, able to pierce armor and inflict venom to deal devastating damage.
Frogs are so gross to me. Frogs are so gross to me. Like, I get grossed out even when I see other animals attacking frogs. I'm like, why would you eat that? Why would you eat that? I even feel grossed out for the centipede here. I'm like, ugh, why would you eat that? Frogs have evolved perfectly to avoid me. If all frogs needed to worry about on this planet was me, they'd be fine. Because I'm too grossed out to even try and kill a frog. I'm getting nauseous right now thinking of frogs. Frogs are so gross to me, man. And if you've ever been like close to a water body where there's like a bunch of frogs, the smell, man. Fuck. Oh, man.
Modified into hypodermic daggers, able to pierce armor and inflict venom to deal devastating damage. The rest of their stats are pretty similar, as most myriapods sport fairly generic mid-level camo. Nothing too impressive, but enough to beat the average player's passive perception as long as they remain motionless. Both centipedes and millipedes sometimes sport vibrant aposematic coloration as well, forgoing stealth and replacing it with intimidation, flexing how toxic their poison or venom is. And as a fairly ancestral lineage of arthropods, it's no surprise their intelligence stat is quite low, as they were introduced to the game during a time before intelligence builds were even remotely viable, and have opted to refine their core strategy rather than respec into a higher intelligence build. Unfortunately, this locks them out of the higher level perception perks like binocular vision and compound eyes, forcing them to mainly rely on their most basic options for detecting enemies, like simple eyes, chemoreception, and tremor sense. As far as other unique abilities go, myriapods don't have all that much. This is a little unfair because when they were first patched into the game, their most important unique ability was their ability to breathe on dry land. However, as the game's meta has progressed, air breathing has become one of the most common abilities in the game, making myriapods much less unique and honestly a bit obsolete. One other special ability they do have is auto-mimicry. It is quite difficult to tell at a glance which end of a centipede is the head, as their back end also looks almost identical. In fact, in some ways, the back end even functions as a head, as it also has highly sensitive structures similar to antennae. The reason this matters is that the best way to disable and defeat a centipede is to attack its head first, before it has a chance to respond. If an attacking player has a 50% chance to accidentally attack the wrong end, that gives centipedes a chance to counterattack for massive damage, or escape. So those are the base stats and abilities of the myriapod. But how do these traits actually stack up against the current meta? While their stats seem solid at first glance, the game's power creep has severely limited their viability. Expansion after expansion, the devs have expanded access to the myriapod's formerly exclusive abilities, and introduced new abilities to the game which function as counterplay options against centipedes and millipedes, allowing newer builds to more efficiently exploit their weaknesses. For example, the introduction of the beak attribute dramatically improved the bird build's matchup against centipedes, as the disjointed hitbox makes the risk of a counterattack less of a concern. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first discuss the centipede. The centipede's bite is one of the strongest in its weight class, enough to make some snake mains jealous. Compared against the power of a scorpion's sting, the bite has higher raw damage and armor-piercing potential, but weaker venom. The bite has higher raw damage and armor-piercing potential, but weaker venom. By itself, this makes it one of the most formidable attacking moves in the entire arthropod faction. So with that in mind, the viability of the centipede really comes down to how reliable the rest of the centipede's game plan is at enabling the use of this vicious attack. And unfortunately, this is where the cracks start to show in this ancient build's game plan. When this move connects, the damage it deals is devastating, but landing a strike with the centipede's bite is easier said than done. For starters, while the centipede's base movement speed is quite solid, it lacks the surprise burst mobility that so many predators rely on. Centipedes just sort of scurry around, hoping that they'll eventually catch their player off guard. But as long as you remain vigilant, centipede attacks are about as predictable and telegraphed as they come. Centipedes have pretty low stealth and make no attempts to conceal themselves as they approach a target. So as long as your character's passive perception is halfway decent, you should have plenty of opportunity to react and escape
Almost like they're blind.
before they get within striking range. Their poor vision also undermines their ability to pursue prey as they flee, even though they easily have the speed to chase them down. The only mistake players commonly make is attempting to stand their ground and fight them off, rather than taking the easy way out and fleeing before they can deal any damage. In addition to their lack of ability to ambush, centipedes also have such a low intelligence stat that fairly rudimentary stealth tactics, things like basic camouflage and hiding behind partial cover, are highly effective against them, and can cause an aggressive centipede to completely miss their opportunity to attack as they run right past you. It's worth noting that one subclass of centipedes does have the compound eyes perk and also sports an even higher base movement speed, one of the fastest in the entire arthropod faction. But these centipedes, called house centipedes, have much lower damage output and defense stats, and mostly just prey on low-tier insects like silverfish and crickets. Even in their own niche of rush-down arthropod builds, centipedes have been power-crept by the Solifugid, also known as the sun spider or camel spider, which is significantly faster on foot, and although it isn't venomous, the raw damage this thing can put out absolutely shreds through anything caught in its path. The sun spider definitely damages or camel spider, which is power-crept by the Solifugid, also known as the sun spider or camel spider, which is significantly faster on foot, and although it isn't venomous, the raw damage this thing can put out absolutely shreds through anything caught in its path. The sun spider definitely deserves its own video though, so I'll save further analysis for later. Switching over to millipedes, things still aren't great, but they do fare a bit better. Millipedes are highly resistant to enemy attacks, there's no denying that. Few builds in the game are better equipped to tank a ton of hits from an onslaught of attackers. However, the millipede's main method of deterring predators, its toxin, is pretty underwhelming. It doesn't deal damage quick enough to really deter persistent predators, at least within the insect faction. Most arthropods have solid—
Look at the way they're pulling it. Look at the way they're holding its fucking antenna. Just pulling it, man, like tug of war.
deterring predators, its toxin, is pretty underwhelming. It doesn't deal damage quick enough to really deter persistent predators, at least within the insect faction. Most arthropods—
It looks like they're using a rope to drag it.
have solid poison resistance stats, so these types of toxins tend to really only make a difference against bird, amphibian, and rodent mains. If millipedes could spec into a more potent chemical defense, similar to the bombardier beetle, they might be a bit more dangerous to attack. But as it stands, assuming you can handle a small amount of poison damage, it can be worth it to continue attacking and fishing for a crit, because even the millipede's armor isn't completely invincible. This weakness at least doesn't impede their primary objective, as even though they have just as terrible of eyesight as centipedes, or potentially even worse in the case of some, this doesn't stop them from easily finding the moss and detritus that they need to live on. In addition, some millipedes do opt for a
Whoa.
different style of defense, with barbed bristles that are highly effective at deterring ants.
I've never seen that, man. Imagine. I've seen. I haven't even seen like the giant ones. I've seen very normal sized centipedes in my life. I didn't know they had spikes. Now this video is not doing a very, they're not coming off very well. I didn't know they were that dumb. They can't see that well. Their perception isn't that good. Intelligence isn't that good. They just walk around. If they bump into something and it moves, then maybe it's food. I'm guessing that's their strategy. That's their whole thing. But they still look amazing. And like all they have is that bite. They do a lot of damage with it, but if you can avoid that bite, you'll be fine. Mm. And a lot of animals, it seems like they can. I didn't know they had spikes. Iron barbs. Now this is a millipede. This is not a centipede. Yeah, this is a millipede. You can see the legs are underneath. This is a millipede. Oh, we are talking millipedes now. I just assumed it was a centipede because of their coloring.
Easily finding the moss and detritus that they need to live on. In addition, some millipedes do opt for a different style of defense, with barbed bristles that are highly effective at deterring ants. This is less effective against birds and rodents, but much better against other arthropods. So while both have counterplay, millipedes...
Oh, they come in so many beautiful, very many beautiful different designs. Like look at this one. This one is beautiful, man. You know, they adapt different colorations for different reasons. To scare off predators, to try and act like they're venomous. That's a very beautiful millipede. Very, very beautiful, man. I've only seen the black ones. I've seen big ones. I've seen big versions, which are just something special when you see a giant millipede. It blows you away. You're like, whoa. They get that big, you know. They're huge and some are very, very big. I've held millipedes before. They shit on your hand. That toxic they do.
Millipedes have options when it comes to adapting to their local meta. So while both have counterplay, millipedes have options when it comes to adapting to their local meta. One major area I think both centipedes and millipedes could improve in is making better use of their abundance of legs. Centipedes have only 2 modified pairs of limbs, their front legs, which have been modified into fangs, and their back legs, which have been modified into antennae. That still leaves several dozen other legs that they could probably afford to convert into more useful appendages.
Yeah, make them all knives. That's what they should do, huh? Evolution, hook them up. Make the other legs just knives. Or just some of them should evolve into just holding guns. You don't need all of them to walk around. You know? Some of those legs can hold heat for you. just alternate. Today I'm holding the banner, tomorrow you're walking. And just delegate like that, man. Give duties. How about duty rota, man? Instead of using all these legs to walk. Yeah. Definitely use them to do other things.
Having similar and other legs that they could probably afford to convert into more useful appendages. Having similar jaw-like legs on their back end would synergize well with their automimicry ability, and make it so that there's no ends on their back end would synergize well with their automimicry ability, and make it so that there's no end you could attack safely. And for the millipede, although they aren't as combat-focused, I think they would still benefit from speccing into some other utility options, like for example, fossorial legs to allow them to dig underground. They have a lot of options, but right now, I genuinely think that myriapods are barely managing to do with dozens of legs what most arthropods do with only a few. Ultimately, I do think both builds have been massively power crept and cannot justify putting them any higher than the low tiers.
Yeah.
Terrifying as the centipede may be, I actually think it fares even worse than the scorpion, given how simple and easily countered its game plan is once you know the matchup. They're going firmly in F tier. Millipedes do fare better.
I think the millipedes they look scary to humans. And yes, they're dangerous. And yes, I can see them between the scary look and how scared humans are of centipedes. those two combination and the way they move, they can fuck up someone. They can fuck up a human. Like if you're not composed and if you don't know what you're doing, if you're just panicking and just running around, or maybe there's a centipede maybe on your couch or something, and it's on you and you're just panicking. Yeah, yeah, it can do damage. But if you know what you're dealing with, it looks like it's just easy. To humans, they're scary. But to other animals have evolved to deal with them. Some eat them. Some know how to fight them. It's just with humans, it's the way they look, the way they move. It's just a phobia. It's scary. But in reality, if your life depended on it, you'd probably find a way to fuck it up. If it's just you and a centipede in a room, and it's your biggest fear, and you have to only one of you gets out alive, you'd kill it. You'd find a way. You'd find a way. You'd find a way. You'd probably I'd probably remove my shirt, toss it on it so that it's underneath my shirt, so that it can't move, and it unless it's the bigger one that we saw earlier. In that case, I yield. I yield. Throw my shirt on it, and then just start stomping on that shirt, stomping like I'm making wine. You'd find a way. You'd find a way. It's just it's a scary looking thing. It's a fear for people. The way they look, it's almost like they evolved to scare humans more than to scare. I don't know. I feel like they scare animals that are smaller than them, and maybe animals that are same size as them. But there's a bunch of animals out there that will fuck up a centipede easy. It's so interesting. Animals that can do that, man. It's like mongoose. Is there monkeys? Is that the plural? Those guys eat snakes, man. Everyone is terrified of snakes, and then you have a mongoose just being like, I'll have snake on 5, hold the mayo. That's an airplane joke.
Better for sure, as they're going firmly in F tier. Millipedes do fare better for sure. Matchup. They're going firmly in F tier. Millipedes do fare better for sure, as their tanky, toxic defensive strategy is tricky to overcome. But with the right strategy or with a significant size advantage, millipedes present very little challenge. In addition, poisonous millipedes suffer from their own success in that some higher intelligence builds, like lemurs and monkeys, actually deliberately trigger their toxic defense ability and then rub the toxin on their fur to gain a temporary bug repellent buff, before either discarding or eating the millipede. So, while I think you could definitely make the argument that they at least make it out of F tier and belong in D tier,
imagine you get captured and they use you to get high first. You get captured, you start crying, and they collect your tears and they start drinking them and getting high on your tears. Bro, imagine. You're a millipede, you get captured, you release your toxin as a defense mechanism. The guy that captured you is rubbing the toxin on himself to get high, and then they eat you after. Yeah. Sad, man.
Here, so while I think you could definitely make the argument that they at least make it out of F tier and belong in D tier, I don't think they belong any higher than that.
That was very unexpected, man. Centipedes being in F tier. Man, you've ruined centipedes for me, Tierzoo. I guess it's fuck centipedes from now on, huh? It's just a look they have going and a strong bite. The venom is not even that strong. Wow. This is like it reminds me of a question I asked when I was doing the great white shark insane biology reaction. Like, would you rather be made for destruction or made for durability. Would you rather be durable or lethal? And I think centipedes here, they used whatever evolution points, little evolution points they had to try and be lethal, try and look scary and a strong bite. Millipedes went for survival and durability. They can't do much damage, but they can take much. They can take damage. I said in that shark video, I'd rather be durable than lethal, because sharks are lethal, but they're very delicate. You know, they can't take damage, man. I think it's very. It's like a joke. You know, it's like a joke, man. It's like Brock Lesnar, man. Can do damage, but guy could not take damage. You know, glass jaw, glass cannons and stuff.
Whether
It's
you
a
want to
glass
play as
cannon
a
that
fast-moving damage dealer or a slow, toxic tank, there are much better options available to you than centipedes or millipedes. Myriapods simply have too many gaps in their defense, both in their physical armor and their game plan overall. You can be as careful as possible, but if your defenses have obvious exploits, you'll always be vulnerable. This is true not just for survival in the wilderness, but also for your personal data online. If you find yourself constantly barraged with spam emails, uncomfortably precise advertisements, and other data ever was, well, okay, given the time cognate and income your data is a bunch of corporate data markets, really concerning if it can be. So if Tierzoo your annual plan to
That was nice. Yeah, centipedes are ruined for me now. I had centipedes. I'll never look at them the same again. You know, my level of respect for them has decreased, but I am still not fucking with a centipede. Because, like I said, it's almost like they evolved to freak humans out, to get humans to go, "What the fuck is that?" It's a defense mechanism maybe for them. Your look can work both ways. Your look can be to terrify people that you're going to prey on. It's also to terrify people that might be looking to prey on you. It defends you, and it's also a weapon. It's a defense and a weapon at the same time. Offense and defense at the same time. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So it's just the bite and power. They're powerful. They have a strong venomous bite that will do damage if it lands, but and that the front and the back being similar. Human centipede, I guess. The front and the back being similar like that. I guess that works. I think that's a good one. That's a very good one. That's a sneaky good one. That's a sneaky good one. But I'm really like disappointed with the intelligence level. It's very low. And just they're not stealthy. They just walk around. Maybe they spot something and they deliberately there's a lot of walking around, stumbling, bumping into stuff with centipedes. This makes sense, like what I was saying earlier, what I was joking about earlier, being a millipede and with with centipede kids. You know how in some in some neighborhoods you'll have gang members that went to high school together, like they know each other, they went to school together. It's just it got to a point they had to pick, and they picked different sides. Imagine being a millipede kid going to school with a bunch of centipedes. you know it's it's like a metaphor. you know in reality, it's the millipedes that are actually more durable. They know how to deal with dangers. Centipedes have always been the bullies, but they can't. They don't know how to survive really. They know how to bully, but they don't know how to survive. It's millipedes that know how to survive because they've never been the cool ones, you know. It's funny. It's funny. Ah, Tierzoo, thanks for fucking up centipedes for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.